The smell of fresh baking bread in the oven will woo almost anyone to a dinner table. Let's make bread together. One way to cut unnecessary preservatives or additives in our family's diet is by making bread at home. It's really easy too. Once you've made the recipe a few times, you won't even need it anymore. You'll remember it by heart. This recipe is modified from a 1960s or 70s version of the Betty Crocker cookbook. She knew what she was doing then, and she still knows. My mom had given me her old cookbook, but you can find them used online at thriftbooks.com. Here I'm milling half a cup of hard red wheat and 2 cups of hard white wheat, and that'll give me close to 4 cups of flour. But you can use all-purpose flour or bread flour. They work just great. I'll oil the bowl that the bread's going to rise in, as well as the bread pan. Once the bread is ready to transfer from the mixing bowl out, I can also get some oil from that bowl to coat my hands so that the bread won't stick to me. Get up your mixer with the dough hook and then start adding ingredients. I make my water really warm. You can pour that in with the yeast and let that sit to start working for about 5 minutes before you add the other ingredients, but it's not necessary. The yeast will activate and work even if you don't. If you buy packages of yeast from the grocery store, 1 packet is equal to 2 1/4 teaspoons. I just happened to find a measuring spoon that was 2 1/4 teaspoons. It's specifically for bread. I melted the coconut oil to make it easier to measure out and then incorporate into the dough as it mixes, but that's not necessary. I mix everything together except for the flour, just for maybe 20 seconds. Then I'll start adding my flour in. I have the flour measured out in a bowl, but I don't add it all at one time. 3 to 4 cups is what the recipe calls for. Depends on the humidity, your altitude, and lots of other factors of how much flour you'll use on any given day. So I start off with about 2 1/2 cups to 3 cups, the very minimum. Mix and see where we are then. Let your mixer mix for a few minutes before you decide how much more flour you're going to add. On this step, I start adding flour in a 1/4 cup at a time. I can always add more, but once it's in there, I can't take it out. You want your bread dough to be soft and pliable, but not sticky. Greasing the bowl all the way up the sides will ensure that your dough doesn't stick to the sides of the bowl. It'll come out nice and clean when you're ready to roll out the dough. Once we transfer the dough into this bowl, we'll cover it and it'll sit an hour or two. If you have a bread proofing button on your oven, it really speeds up your rise time, but you can just put a piece of saran wrap and a tea towel on top and place the bowl in a warm place, or at least a place where it's not going to get a big draft. I like to re-oil my hands and then coat the outside of the bread completely before I put it down in the bowl. The dough has completed the first rise when you push your finger in and it stays dented in and it's about doubled in size. Roll your dough out into a large rectangle. It shouldn't stick to your rolling pin or your surface because it's been oiled. I roll the dough out to 1/4 inch about thickness, and don't worry if it's not a perfect rectangle. We're going to be folding those long sides in to begin rolling the dough up into its final loaf form. I give it an extra little roll here just to help the bread stick to itself. I'll start at one end and roll the dough up. I try to make a pretty tight roll and I gently stretch the sides out just so I don't end up with a lot of ends to pinch together on the end. I just kind of tuck them as I roll forward. Once the roll is completed, just pinch those ends together, and I just kind of smooth them out as I pinch, and that way the bread won't separate as it bakes. But the seam side is going to go down in the pan anyway, so don't stress about it if it doesn't seem to be pinching together as well as you want. Before you put the bread in your loaf pan, make sure all the corners and sides are oiled well, and then you can oil the surface of your bread again, or you can take butter and rub into that surface. It'll make your crust extra delicious. When the loaf is in the pan, you can cut a design in the top if you like, then cover it with a tea towel and let it rise, the second rise, about 30 minutes or so. Then you'll be ready to bake at 425 for 30 minutes.